That's all study the recording course, Zahra. Yes.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. So, tell me, what drove you to want to do what you're doing? I'd love to know.
I don't know whether there's a single defining factor.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everything in life. We get to a point and your awareness grows.
Mm-hmm.
But I used to work in manufacturing.
Okay.
I had a lot of responsibility in the job I had, which is good. I enjoyed it, although it was really a lot to take on. Curiosity is part of my sort of core. I'm a kind of curious about all sorts of things. Anyway, I got interested in the mind-body relationship, and I was exploring different possibilities, and I looked at something called the human givens.
Mm-hmm.
Good
I've
sort of
not heard of it, but okay, sounds interesting.
it's the good people. They're I think Joe Griffin is probably retired now. Who's already I think he retired once anyway, quite a while back. So he's probably well out of it now. And Ivan Tyrrell,
Mm-hmm.
they set up the Human Givens Institute. It went through various changes, and I think they had to reform. But
Okay.
Joe Griffin was a especially good guy.
Right.
Um, Ivan Tyrrell has a son called Mark Tyrrell, who actually has set up a whole training program for hypnotherapists called what is it called? Can't remember. Anyway, separate. That's another story. Anyway, the Hutton Givens is good solid training, and I was seriously there was a serious consideration doing that. But I also had a friend who lived in. I was in Scotland in those days. You sometimes hear that Scottish twang in my voice, and
That, yeah, I can't hear it yet. I can't hear it yet.
hang in there, hang in there. Uh, one of my neighbours from downstairs, and he had trained in clinical hypnotherapy,
Right.
and we still got on really well. We're actually due for a Zoom chat sometime soon, and I'd sort of noted what he'd said, and he said he'd done a lot of research, and he said the program he ranked was the best course in the country.
Okay.
So I thought, well, somebody's done the homework. Well, I trusted him then, as I trust him now. One of the best people I've met. He really is such a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, something happened.
Okay.
In the business. A new colleague had been introduced to the business, and he was creating havoc, as far as I was concerned.
This is the manufacturing business or his business? Your business?
This is the manufacturing business.
Yeah, sure.
The business, and I did. This is before I went solo.
Yeah.
And he was very difficult to deal with, and it was like a trigger. And I thought, if this guy is going to stick around, I cannot allow myself to carry on like this forever. I have to do something, even if I can't make the change now. I have to sort of give myself a goal to work towards.
Yeah, sure.
And that's what I triggered it. I rang Alistair and said, tell me about that course, and 2 weeks later, the timing was perfect. I started the course. So even though that guy was particularly nasty, in a way, I'm grateful.
I know what you mean. I know. I say some people come to teach us a lesson, don't they? And they just put us on a different path. And so maybe he was kind of like a blessing in disguise, I suppose. Because are you enjoying what you're doing more now than you were doing with the manufacturing?
No, just in a different way.
Okay, different way. Carry on. Sorry for that interruption. Yeah,
that's okay. It's a good question. That man didn't survive. The big boss who owned the business, had retired, and he came back in, and he found out what was going on.
Oh, good guy.
And he came and had a chat to me, and he
dismissed him.
He didn't. But he made sure it happened pretty damn quickly. Anyway. Yes, I did enjoy my job. We had a lot of successes. We did some really good things as a business, and I did some good things within that business. I'm a number of things I'm particularly proud of achieving, which were not just for me, although partly for me, but also for the business. Really big markers.
Can I ask what you were manufacturing? Is that too much to ask?
Paper.
Oh, Just white A4, A3, just plain paper?
Not really, no. It's a bit more specialized than that. It was a variety of things. We were a small scale manufacturer. I don't think we made, I think we probably made about 30,000 tons a year at most.
Wow, okay. It's still a lot. That's,
No,
I can't even imagine.
that's small fry.
Is it?
If you go to a big newsprint mill, a big newsprint mill will churn out 30,000 tons in a week from one machine, something like that.
Okay.
The scales are enormous.
Mm. But mind you, just to point that out, have you heard of the West Sussex County Times, the newspaper?
No.
Oh, you haven't? Oh, well, that's irrelevant then, because one of my poems got published in that. So just when you were talking about churning out and that stuff, it just, I don't know why, I just went over there, 5 seconds in my head. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Anyway, we did all sorts of specialist papers, a few of them nobody else could do. So when we went bust in 2008, it was a big loss to the market as well.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I was prepared for the moment, if you will, because I'd sort of got with the businesses had taught us to do coaching. I had done a distance course in performance coaching as well as doing the hypnotherapy training, which was a 3-year program. So I was kind of set up for running my own business after the business folded, which is very, very sad. I was pretty damn angry about it because it was a unique business, and there were many good people in the business. Many had been there, man and boy, if you will, and it was predominantly male. It's an old manufacturing business, and that tended to be predominantly male. But the offices, especially sales department, were largely female, which is good.
Yeah.
I had a very good German colleague from who still lives in Scotland. She was the best, and she was a very good salesperson. Anyway, and we're still friends, which is nice. And so I used to travel on business with her sometimes, either with her or by myself, because I used to speak pretty decent German. It's kind of gone now.
So Mark and you have probably got that in common because he can speak a bit of German too. So maybe you could brush up on that. Who knows? Have a coffee, just practice your German, because it's like riding a bicycle. It comes back, Charles, doesn't it? I hear.
Yeah, it does come back. If I had time to do it a bit more, I would go and do. I kind of think the idea of going living in Germany for 6 months and come back. I'd like to do the same with France. France, my French has got pretty rough. I used to speak decent French. Never as good as the German, but yeah, because I'd lived in Germany and France before I all part of my history.
Wow, well traveled. Okay,
And
Switzerland then. So you probably could kind of get around in Switzerland then, because they speak a combination of those two, don't they? German and.
Well, I was very sad once upon a time, many years ago, not to get a job in Switzerland, and I had an interview. I think there were only 2 people in the running. Well, twice it happened. Twice I nearly got a job in Switzerland. The first time, it was in a paper mill making newsprint, as it happens.
Yeah.
And so I had a great interview. Things went well. It was in German-speaking part of Switzerland, but they don't speak Hochdeutsch. They speak a very Schweizerdeutsch.
They got their own
quite different, but I could have got there, and they said, will you be able to speak Schweizerdeutsch in 6 months? I said, no bother at all. And I was quite convinced I could.
Yeah.
So anyway, unfortunately, they didn't take me up on that. They thought they thought that was a step too far. Anyway, there you go. I had another job opportunity in Switzerland several years, quite a lot later, and again I was in the final 2 for that, so it's good fun.
I almost ended up in Switzerland as well. So my background comes from Iran, and there was a point where
I imagine
we're not allowed to talk to men or boys. Okay, my dad was very religious. He was very kind of like, down the line, and from the age of 8, 9. Yeah, 9 basically. He just curtain came down and said, "You're not allowed to talk to boys. You're not allowed to talk to men." Some of my best friends were boys. Suddenly it was like, no, not allowed.
Oh dear. Yeah.
I know. And it was very difficult for me because, you know, like that's your best friend. Suddenly you just
Yeah.
can't talk to them
Yeah.
anymore. Couldn't get my head around it.
Yeah.
Anyways, this went on for a while, and like, you know, you're just girls only. The boys are over there. You talk to men if you want to go shopping, but that's about it. You know, it's need to know basis. And then there was a friend of my mum who was she was Swiss, um, and she was lovely. She had like 5 boys. Okay, she was married to an Iranian, and at the time, our dining table had just really had it. And I said to Dad, like, I'm embarrassed of people coming round now because it's just like awful. Like, you know, there was like my mum had ironed something and some of the tablecloth had like got imprinted onto it and she wouldn't bother covering it up. You know, she's so busy. Like, you just saw this thing.
Yeah.
The chairs were like wobbly, they were peeling. I was just like, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed. I said, let me buy you a dining table. That's what I told my mum and dad.
Yes.
And I had an uncle who was very rich. He was a millionaire. I mean, he made it at the age of 40. He'd never been to school, but he was very generous when it came to giving presents. You know, round about once a year we have this thing called Eid, around about March,
Yeah.
and you know, birthdays. Oh yeah, he'd just give you like £2,000, £5,000, that kind of money. That's his present. To him, it was nothing. Like, to me, it was like, wow,
Yeah.
I'd get
Yeah.
£50 off Dad, and I'd be like, have to hang on to it, like prove what happened to every single pence.
Yeah.
Well, it's 2 months, but never mind. So yeah, I bought them this dining table. And my mum said, "Oh well, we can get her son to give you a lift, to give us a lift, so we can go and pick it out." So it's not like IKEA or anything. Or we didn't have internet back in those days, so he just drove me there, okay? And we picked out this dining table, and then I realized that his dog was missing. You know, when we going around for coffees and things, and then a few months later, we just got out of the car. It was middle of the summer. It was really hot, I remember. And we just stopped at this ice cream parlor with Mum. And I got out of the car to go and buy the ice cream, and I spotted this dog. And I was like, this dog's like at least 5 miles away from where it should have been, where they lived.
Uh-huh.
What the hell's this dog doing here? I know this belongs to them. I don't know. I just recognized it. Not many people had dogs back in. It was a German Shepherd as well, and they used to take it hunting. They were really attached to this dog. And he was a school dropout. So like this was his best friend. Okay. And I got out of the car and I just didn't go and get the ice cream. I said, Mum, I'm going to stay with this dog. You go home, you call them and tell them, you know, Zahra's found this dog. That's it. And all the people, the shop assistants were looking at me, the shopkeepers going, what the hell are you standing here in this heat, all dressed because I has a headscarf on, I'm covered up to here like you are. And I wasn't listening to them. I just stayed by this dog. And about 10 minutes later, he turned up. And that's it. Apparently, he just fell in love with me after that. And he was in tears that, you know, I'd found his dog. People remember how you make them feel and all that. Suddenly, like, no, that's it. He wants to marry me. I'm 16, damn it. Like, I don't want to get married now. This went on and on and on. And it got to the point where, like, his mum was ringing my mum at 6 o'clock in the morning saying he's all depressed. He won't get out of bed. He goes, like, so yeah, they were like pushing me to try and, like, I don't know, get engaged to him or something. And he wanted to go to Switzerland to study something to do with orthodont, you know, like how will they make teeth? I don't know what that stuff's called. And I was just like, I can't move to Switzerland. I can't speak French. I can't speak German. Like, what the hell am I going to do there with this guy out there? So I said no to that. But yeah, even when we moved to England, it was constantly ringing me going like, what are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And eventually he got the message. But yeah, I hear he got married eventually to another Iranian woman. And then he went back to Iran after he did his training. So I had another friend from my corporate days who moved to Switzerland, and he was constantly inviting me, but I've actually never been, apart from I think a stop by from Iran to England. Like they stop by, don't they, to refuel. That's the only time I've actually been in Switzerland. I could have gone, but I said, nah, I haven't. But I hear it's a beautiful country. And
very beautiful country, yes.
maybe one day we should visit. So your why was kind of like accidental, really, and going on a few courses and then realizing you're good at that. Yeah.
well, I don't know what I'm going to say, but one of the things that fuels it in a way, and or informs it anyway, was when I used to walk around the business in the morning, talking to the guys running the machines.
Mm.
Many of these people, well, the guys running the machines are all pretty well left school at the age of 15. Even one, I remember, one old guy left to school at 14.
Oh my gosh.
You know, I was going back as far as that. He was he's a lovely old guy. Anyway, it was talking to the guys. It's very clear they're very capable, very clever people.
Yeah. Normally they are. Normally they are. Apparently, according to John Lenhart, they've come to change the world. The education system doesn't fit majority of those kind of people. And you know, when we were talking about this personality thing, and I talked about the server why and the how that we both are. Yeah, there's a whole video on John talking about it. I could share with you later. But yeah, apparently, the people who don't get on at all in the education system are actually here to change the world.
Okay.
And so, yeah, the education system's only designed for the kind of 35% of the population, and actually they get damaged the most. I was quite intrigued to hear that. But yeah, John's done a lot of studies on the brain and mind, and he's got this whole model, which we could talk about later. But yeah, so this guy dropped out at 14. He was very clever.
It was just generally the guys running the machine. We were just talking to them. It was quite clear that they were clever people, but had no ambition.
Yeah.
But they didn't recognize that they had this ability, and it certainly wasn't allowed to flourish because, you know, their job is to run the machine, do this, to do that. So the opportunities to contribute beyond that were perhaps rather limited until we introduced total quality management, which is my responsibility. And so when we set to some improvement teams, then they were able to get involved in projects beyond their daily remit. And it was like sort of lighting a blue touch paper, you know. And so you allow these people to develop into something which, you know, they wouldn't have. They still have the regular job, but this was all on top of it.
Yeah.
But it was illuminating to see how people could come alive when they were given the opportunity. Look, that kind of informs me, and it's just sort of having worked with people on a one-to-one basis, both as being responsible for a team of people, and working with people. You know, you sort of awareness, knowledge builds up about how people are functioning and stuff like that. So I suppose it's kind of how I come to love helping people to find that spark within themselves. So yes.
So what's my spark then? What would you say my spark is?
Oh, I haven't worked with you long enough to recognise that, Zahra. But are you very much a people person? You obviously like bring people together. That brings you alive. Your curiosity fuels that interest, and you're a bridging. You're a bridge builder.
Okay, yeah, I like that. So can I talk about my uniqueness now? Because apparently that's what I'm meant to do. So this was something.
Yes.
So this is what's on my first round on LinkedIn. This is kind of my third attempt. I've lost count now. I just arrived after a 10-year gap, okay, of employment. This is just after COVID. And I was like, do you know what? I'm looking for a publisher for my book. I don't know anything about marketing. I wanted to help this friend of mine who was unemployed. So anyways, I thought, do you know what? He's really good at photography. Let me help him like learn about marketing because he's an introvert. And I said, why don't you set up your own business? He goes, oh, it's all about marketing. I don't understand marketing. And I was like, okay, let me find out. So I kind of just took to LinkedIn. Before that, I was on Facebook. And I thought, I just came across this one post, and it was a picture of a girl wearing a Gucci top, Down syndrome. She had Down syndrome. She's a beautiful smile. And there was talk of having a disabled magazine. And I was like, what's disabled magazine with a smile, right? What are you doing in a picture? Like, what's disabled? Like, we're all capable of smiling. She's smiling. That's what's selling. I said, why do we need a disabled magazine? Like, I'd love to see her next to Julia Roberts one day. And that was it. That just did it, right? All the marketing people turned up and like, she's right. And they started connecting with me. And then I'm getting DM after DM going, who are you? Where have you been? All this stuff. And eventually somebody came and said, listen, tell me what you do. Like, where have you been? Why are you here? I said, well, I've written these poems. He said, oh, send me them. So I sent him like a couple. And he goes, what you are saying, everyone has to hear, but there's a problem. They're too long. I said, yeah, okay. LinkedIn algorithm. And he kind of told me my limitations. I picked out this one poem on self-compassion, right? Saying you can't take care of anybody unless you're taking care of yourself, right? And I posted that. And apparently that's when I took the internet by storm. Now, I don't know how you do that, but, you know, a growth hacker found me after that and decided to grow me. And within a few months, I was on something called the Circle of Legend. I was like, I've changed the name. I'm no Circle of Legend. I'm just his mum, you know, I've just turned up to like help people. Another guy, there was this other guy called Swarup, and he turned up and he was like, Zahra, what is your uniqueness? What is your uniqueness? I said, I don't know what my uniqueness, just leave me alone. Like, what would it? So eventually he had this call with me and he shouted at me for 2 hours going, what the hell are you doing, woman? I said, I'm growing leaders. He goes, you're not doing anything of the kind. I was like, okay, you need to sit this test. So he made me sit it, 80 pounds later. You're a dealer. I said, I'm not a dealer. Yes, you are. You're a dealer. You're a dealer. So he's just like trying to convince me I'm a dealer. I said, no, I'm a builder. No, you're a dealer. So we got into this kerfuffle. Eventually, I convinced him, to me, it wasn't about the money, right? I had a bigger way. And he said, well, you need to talk to John Lenhart then. And that's when I sat my unique factor test, when I met John. We just had a chat. And my result came back as server exhorter, right? What the hell does that mean? Okay. So the server side of me sees a need. It sees a need and it wants to fulfill it. It could be anything, right? Which is why I potentially have this thing with my sense of direction, because I'm like, there's a need here, there's a need here. Which one should I do? You know, I can overwhelm myself thinking I need to do everything. So focus is really important for me. So I am aware of that now. But at the time I was like, he needs a job. He needs to learn about marketing. We don't need a disabled magazine. The job seekers need jobs. So I was trying to do too much. So I became extremely popular to the point where everyone was tagging me and just saying thank you was taking 17 hours a day. That's how crazy that got. Okay. It was just impossible. I wasn't sleeping. So the server side of me sees a need and it wants to fulfill it. The exhorter side of me wants to encourage people. Okay. Yeah. It's more like a cheerleader. And the combination of these two mean that I normally highlight the one thing most people miss. Why is that? Because as a server, I encompass it all what John calls intangible drivers, the 7 of them, the 7 of them. So I can see things from other people's perspectives, which is probably why I pick up on the need. And I'm like, oh, I understand you need this. I understand you need this. I understand you see that or want that or whatever. Or let me help you because I'm encouraging them, okay? But because I can see things from all perspectives, I guess when I get to focus, right, then I can get to the bottom of their problem. It makes me a very good problem solver, apparently. Okay, so everybody's always come to me with all their problems. So all my life, I'm like, Zahra, help me. Zahra, help me. I need this, I need that. And I've just couldn't understand why when I needed help, no one was ever there, because it was too much for them.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about my uniqueness. Now, in order to connect with an exhorter, okay, apparently tonality and facial expressions really matter.
Okay.
Exhorters want you to feel what they feel, and they don't normally stop until you feel what they feel. You can't tell them to shut up. They'll get louder and louder and louder, which probably explains why I wanted to leave Iran, because it was a kind of a country like, shh, be quiet. You can't say that. You can't behave like this. Like, you're a woman, have your head down, right? Oh yeah, it's like, and I'm like, no, you're not going to tell me what to do. You're not going to tell me I can't say or feel that, you know. I'm not happy with this guy doing this or that, you know, being told to do that. So yeah, I felt like I'd outgrown the country, but really, I guess I got big enough to leave in the end. I don't think I was ever designed for that country ever. So I don't feel like it was somewhere I could call home, you know, before or after the revolution. So that's about the personality. Apparently, we're born like this. And even before we're born like this, it's something to do with our soul. It's you know, we just arrive with this intangible driver. They dropped me into this family. My mum is a compassion server, so she's kind and she adapts. Okay. But my father was a administrator, exhorter. So that's where we connected. We got on really well. And mum used to get upset about that. And the administrator side of him, they are controlling. They are controlling. They like to play games, sometimes mind games. They like to move people around just for the hell of it, especially if they're immature. And so as good ones, they become coaches. They're very good at directing people. A lot of directors are administrators. So it's understanding, like, when you come across somebody, like if they're up to play games with you or not, if they're mature enough or not. As ladies in business, I think it's really important to highlight those types of characters because they can give us hell. And especially if they find somebody who wants to help people, you can imagine, and this guy just wants to control you and he's manipulative, and you know, you can get yourself into a lot of trouble, which I did on my last round. So this time round, I'm like, guys, would you mind please sitting your intangible driver before we meet? For some reason, I didn't feel like I needed to do that with you. It was just, yeah, but yeah, it's, I if I'm a little bit like, it helps connect with people as well, because there's things you can say that people will, people need to hear a certain way. So I can't adapt. Well, my intangible driver can't adapt. I've learned to do that. Okay. But most exhorter, like if you're an exhorter, how you are fixed. The servers can adapt. And I think it just comes with age, doesn't it? I said you just learn to pick up on what works, what doesn't.
Yeah, for sure.
And I don't know, but I have a feeling you might be an exhorter server. I don't know for sure. But it's a free test. It takes around 3 minutes. And I so wish I'd bloody done it years ago, because I wouldn't have wasted all my life.
Send me the link, I'll do it.
Yeah, I wouldn't have studied chemistry. I wouldn't have got into debt. I wouldn't have worked for the corporate world. And there's so many things I wouldn't have done, because apparently I'm a writer and I'm a talker and I'm all those kind of things. And yeah, what do you do in a corporate world? Tap, tap, tap. Nightmare. And so I ended up with RSI.
In my system, you're a nomad with a strong warrior in a warrior.
I'm definitely a warrior. So they tried to diagnose my son with autism. I stood up against the system there. I managed to turn that around. And talking about school dropouts, I've taken him out of school at the age of 11.
Good.
So I'm homeschooling him now. Yeah.
Well,
yeah, he's a computer geek. He programs. His account got hacked 2 days ago, so we've got to sort that out. They put sexual content on his game. Awful, awful, honestly. So I'm going to have to write to Roblox now. So that's been a couple of really trying days. But I took him out yesterday and cheered him up and bought him some shoes and clothes and stuff. And we went out for lunch and we had a Mummy Alex date.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I'm all about helping people improve their communication skills. Obviously, the unique factor test helps. I like telling my stories. I believe it helps the introverts come out of their shell. Apparently, I helped about 11,000 people in my last round. Don't know, that's what I'm told. I grew a lot of businesses. I didn't take a single penny, but I was offered the Shopenza account. People were offering me partnerships. I rejected everything because one of my callings was to say, please don't underestimate women. And, you know, let's not pretend that, you know, gaps in CVs define you, because, you know, look what I've been capable of. And don't feel like you have to go to university and get into debt, because apparently the Harvard MBA was based on my activity. And I became like in the 0.01% of the marketing. Like I got noticed by that percent. They wanted to connect with me, but I was getting so many DMs. Charles. I just couldn't see what's from the trees. So I just decided that I was going to connect all the truth seekers and then get the hell out. because I took 6 months off. Yeah, I posted on the Mayor of London. I was like, are you kidding? Like, why are we in lockdown? The airport's open. That country's code red. Here's a poem I wrote about the nurses and their pay, and that's what I wrote on Brexit. And I just stirred everything up. And then 2 days later, Boris Johnson turns up. As of 6 o'clock tomorrow, COVID's over. I was like, okay, well, I think I've done my job now. So that was one of my callings, to bring an end to COVID, because my brother's in care and they were forcing him to wear the mask and all sorts of things. And he was very depressed, which probably why that picture of the girl with the Down syndrome really got to me, because like, he wants to fit in. He doesn't want to be on a disabled magazine. He wants to pretend he's normal. And so that kind of like, I guess, was my initial why. But now I want to help businesses grow. And I want to create jobs in line with people's intangible drivers. So I'm going to be running some workshops, and I'm training people free of charge, with the agreement that once they start earning money, they cut me 10%. And I'm going to keep below, up to the tax threshold. And after that, I'm going to put the money in a kind of like a grant scheme, so people can then utilize that money and use it for logos and trademarks and websites and all those kind of things we all need. So I believe we need to create jobs now, because we've got to a really bad point, and this economic crisis is potentially going to carry on till 2030.
Yes.
So I did this thing called value exchange, and that's what I've been doing. And apparently the model of my business was up 65% when Silicon Valley was 55% down. So yeah, I'm not chasing money. I love meeting people and I love helping people, and I want to help them grow a business now. That's it. That's my work.
Yeah. And I like to help the grow the individual.
Yeah. So how can we collaborate? Do you want to come to one of my workshops? They're really fun. We play games.
Is this online?
Yeah, it's on Zoom. I don't leave the house. Well, I leave the house to go shopping, but I won't travel to go to workshops and stuff. I need to be around with my son. So it's I run them on Zoom. I aim for 2 introverts, 2 extroverts, and me or one other lady, because I don't want everyone to just stare at me all the time. And then we get people to just lightly introduce themselves. Like, how did you come to have your name, Charles? Like, why are you called Charles? It's like an icebreaker. Yeah. And then people like to talk about themselves. We play this ABC game, then we play the strange object game, then I tell a story. I teach them about the 1, 2, 3, 4, how to balance their energy levels. And then when I tell the story, I'm like, well, what would you do in my situation? It gets people chatting and talking. And we realize like some people are higher in emotional intelligence than others. So it identifies who might need help more than others and who could even be helping others. And yeah, then there's a unique factor test. So I don't go in selling anything. It's more like offering value. And then usually people then meet each other, because everybody's going on LinkedIn, just commenting. Nobody's met anybody. And it's just opening that floor, going, oh, I like him. I like her. I like her. And straight away, we've got 5 friends. And I have 5. I want to do 5 of these pilots and then mix and match the sessions. And then hopefully more people will find somebody else they want to work with or partner up with, because I believe we need lots of hands if we want to make the difference joined together.
I've just launched a program on emotional intelligence for leaders and one for teams.
Okay, brilliant. I ran a workshop on that. I did one on my last round for M. Ronan. She's in Philippines. So it'll be interesting to see. The topic I talked about was self-projection. A lot of people hadn't even thought about the self-projection aspect of things. You know, when we go around blaming somebody and we go, he did that to me, and we never think, well, let's take a step back and go, well, why did I feel that way? But really that situation, or did I create some of it, or was there a misunderstanding? And we get irate, don't we? And we start screaming and shouting, and then we cause this argument. Yeah, I put a lot of emphasis on self-projection on my last workshop. But yeah, okay, so emotional intelligence, what else can you do? Tell me.
Well, along with Keely, who's an associate, we do team building.
Okay.
She does leadership coaching. I always say that I deal with the I also am not a leadership coach, but I coach leaders.
Okay.
And that means where we start from is that is the bit about excuse me, removing the barriers to that inner spark coming out flame.
The blocks. You're talking about the blocks here?
Get in the way of that spark coming to light, yeah, or coming to life. Because people have blocks through to trauma, abuse.
Absolutely.
Childhood trauma is prevalent.
Yeah, yeah.
And I have lots of success with people, mainly women, but sometimes men. Therefore, dealing with abuse, shame and guilt. These are very, 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 very big deals. The good thing is I don't want them to talk about their experience. That's a no-no as far as I'm concerned. They've lived out their experience inside their heads far too long. I want them to get out of the heads and get that behind them. But we do have to address it and address it head on.
So how do you address it? Because I guess it's some kind of post-traumatic stress syndrome we're talking about. Yeah. So do you do this through rehearsing triggers? You know what I mean by that?
I use a bilateral stimulation process.
I don't know what that means. Is this to do a pendulum? You hypnotize them? You hypnotize them?
No, but I use a light source like that. Yeah. There's special ways to using a light source like that, which is very effective for rapid. It has a very high success rate. Sadly, I can never guarantee.
Oh, I'd love to see this. How do I see what goes on in there? I want to be a fly in the wall somewhere, but that's not allowed, is it? No. Okay, I tell you what. I do have somebody I'd like to connect you with, but he's in America. Would that be out of bound?
No.
Because he wants to help soldiers and people like that who from the armed forces who are struggling with post-traumatic, okay, and who don't want it to come to, like, because they're trying to be all manly and everything. And a lot of their families are suffering. I mean, there's a high rate of suicide. So these are like really intense cases. Would that be like, do you have a sort of limit for that? Would you say, sorry, that's not my area of I don't want to get involved with that, or would that be okay?
It's okay.
He's okay to talk to. It's the people he wants to help, which I'm like, I'm not sure how to go about that. But maybe you guys could have a chat.
Of course we can. I've worked with servicemen. I've worked with I worked with a number of people who. One guy had been in the Rhodesian army.
All right.
Okay. His trauma had started from childhood. He'd seen his mother hanging.
Oh, don't. Okay. Oh, that's awful. But I've witnessed the hanging, by the way. I saw one. I've seen some horrendous things, but I've managed to heal myself. So it's like I've had I've dealt with a hell of a lot. I mean, obviously I've lived through the war for 8 years in Iran. I witnessed hangings. There was a lot of fighting at home. Oh, you don't even want to know what I've been through. Let's not even go there. Like, yeah, it's don't have a problem telling the stories, by the way. You know, I'm over it. It's I think it's just made me more resilient, to be honest. But yeah, there are times when I see like a crane now and I'm like, I just have to remind myself there's people living there now and they're having parties and watching tellies and no one's dying. And it can still, I guess, remind you. I mean, you remember the worst thing, don't you? It's difficult to forget the negative things in your life. Yes. But no, I can deal with it. It's okay. It's not rosy, but you know, it's part of life. And I guess when you have difficult situations, you kind of can remind yourself that you managed to overcome that. So this is nothing in comparison.
If you want to experience how it works for yourself, let me know and we'll do a session.
You want to do one on me?
If you got something that triggers you, yes. Let me know.
Cranes are my biggest trigger at the moment. That's my biggest trigger. Cranes. Yeah.
Cranes, as in the machinery with the thing.
Yeah, no, the big cranes that they do buildings.
Yeah, okay, those. Yeah.
That's my trigger because I saw some guy be hung.
Yeah,
and
okay.
He was standing and they just pulled him up and then, you know, he's dropped his slipper and he wet his pants. I was only 6. I fainted. Eyes is another one. My mum's cataract went wrong. She ended up with a detached retina. I suffered the same thing 2 years ago. Now I have plenty, but the crane's the worst one. So I don't know. Pick your poison. Which one you want to pick on? Yeah.
That's not too bad. And
so it is like you say, scrambled a little bit. I can't say it's like gone now, but I'm not feeling it like like how it got me before, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The memory can stay. It's okay as long as we've taken the charge out of the memory. That's all we're doing.
Okay, because I do want to write my book one day. I don't want to be able to know.
The memory will serve you for that without having to get upset about it.
Yeah.
Now, when we all get information coming into us from the outside world through the five physical senses: visually, auditory, kinesthetic, olfactory, and gustatory. Yeah, all that's good stuff. Yeah, that's what our brain. The brain is a black box. The brain hasn't a clue what is happening in the world. It only knows what it's telling it, what the world is telling it, and what the body is telling it. So a memory is captured
here and here, both your heart and there. Yeah.
So the brain is a wonderful pattern matching system. So when all that information comes in, it comes into the thalamus, which is like a sorting office. The thalamus says, is this okay? Can I, what do I do with this information? And 99% of the time, it says it's all good stuff, straight to the prefrontal cortex, goes into the normal working system of the brain. If there's a worry from what the thalamus sees, and says, oh, I'm not sure about this, a bit dangerous, it goes to the amygdala. This is your amygdala, and your amygdala sees this invasion. I don't like that.
Triggers.
That's what happens to your amygdala. And because that stays there, and it never goes into long-term memory to be resolved properly, then anytime something comes along, so when you see a crane now, your amygdala immediately does that because you go back, your pattern matches back to that horrible memory. That's what it does.
Okay.
So what we've done is release that. What we've been doing is releasing that from the amygdala. So now if you were to see a building crane, chances are that will be less or not bother you at all now. I hope it's growing nothing. If it is, let me know and we'll fix it.
Okay. Right.
That will tend to fade and be okay now.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So that's one of the ways of how we're working with veterans.
So you'll save me a lot of doing that from now on.
I hope so. Yeah. So if you've got other memories, we'll fix those sometime.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Thank you. I shall keep you informed the next time I see a crane.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I want to definitely connect you with Mark. Like I said, he's round the corner. We take the dog for a walk and have a chat. I prefer doing that with Mark.
Yeah.
You know, he's a good guy to know, and he's well connected. And then the other guy I want to connect you with is the guy with the PTSD, John Lenhart as well. Who else? The mental health agents, really. People who want to help people do stuff like that. I've got another lady called Olga. She likes to help people with yoga and mindfulness. And so there are lots of people in this field. But ideally, it's a case of like, if we're all in a room and having fun and getting to know each other, then we can see who we like better than others. I think that's how people are going to get drawn. And ideally, I want to move towards those as opposed to just everybody. I mean, I don't want to say wasting, because one-to-ones are great, and you get to know each other more in detail. But yeah, you'll have a rough idea of who's what. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Does that sound good to you?
Yeah, that's great, Sarah. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, let me know if there's anything that you think about later.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thanks for your time, and I really
take care. Lovely to meet you.
Take care. Bye.
Bye. Bye, Zahra. Bye.